Hey everybody, Mike Brails for the Brails Woodworks. Thank you for joining me back on my channel. I've got a very large cherry burl here, and I've kept this one specifically until I have gotten my coring tool, because I hated to let everything on the inside of this go to waste if I made this into a big bowl, which I think it lends itself to. And the last one I had sold very well at one of the last shows I had, so I think I want to do the same thing. Any rate, so I've got the big burl and I'm ready to put my largest faceplate on it and get started. So let's get going. Alright, so I've changed the type of screws I've been using. I had been using more of a deck screw, long, usually about 2 inch. This is made by Hillman. It's a multi-material screw. It's a hex head. It's a 1/4 inch, and I'm using a 1 3/4. These things are pretty beefy, and this faceplate takes 8 screws, so I feel pretty good about it. But regardless, when I do something this big, and I am shaping the outside, and I've got it on my faceplate, always, always, always use your tailstock. So let's get this one tied down. All right, we're good to go. Let's get this on the lathe. So when you go to turn this on the first time, something that's this out of balance, I always turn the speed all the way down and get it started, and then take it up until it's at a speed that you can work and it's not going to move the lathe. So the first priority on something like this will be to shape the outside and shape the bottom so I can form the tenon, so this can then attach to my chuck. So I can get it nice and secure, and then I can core it and save as much of this beautiful burl as I can. So right now I'm going to get started, and all I'm going to be doing is trying to shape the outside. Okay, so when you're doing something like this, just be ready. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You want to take your time, go very slow. It may seem like you're not doing anything, but all I'm doing right now is I'm cutting a lot of air, and I'm right at this point. All I'm doing is taking off this one little node right here. Nothing. Well, I guess there's 2 nodes I'm touching, but no, it's going to take a while to get this down to where I can get nice long cuts on it. But until it gets more balanced, the speed has to stay slow, and you want to take your time with your shaping. So when I'm cutting something this big, and you know, and you're cutting a lot of air, sometimes as your gouge is on the tool rest, I keep an eye not only at the tip of the tool where it's touching the wood, but I also watch up here on the top of the turn, because I can sometimes get a better idea on where I am by looking. I can see the cut happening better up here than I can right at where the cut is occurring, believe it or not. So I'm constantly looking from here to here, here, and here. What I can certainly see better for sure is the depth of the cut when I'm looking up here. Alright, I'm going to change out. I'm going to put my turner's edge 5/8 bowl gouge way, and I'm going to grab my Thompson 3/4 inch bowl gouge. So I'll be right back. So I got touching on about 40% now. Still turning about 60% air. Would you look at that? That is absolutely beautiful. Wow. Long way to go. This is all end grain up here. Man, this stuff is hard. Very, very hard. So one of the questions I'll have to answer for myself on this particular piece is, how deep do I want to go? Do I want to leave some of this that I can, so when I actually turn my bowl, that it'll have some of these imperfections in it? Or do I want to cut through all of this, get down as deep and have as solid a piece as I possibly can? I think this one lends itself to the being able to leave some of this, and yeah, I'm just going to keep going, and I'm going to make that decision as I go along, see how it starts to shape up. So keep on. My experience with cherry is it's pretty easy to turn. But my last time I made one of these, and I think it was from the other half of this one, it was very hard, and I ended up sharpening almost as much as I do when I do pecan. So I really need to sharpen right now, so I'll be back. Certainly starting to take shape. Slowly, slowly, slowly. Like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Alright, I think I'm going to do a last cleanup cut, and I think I'm going to call it quits on the bottom. I am going to make sure this is flat, and I am going to put on a sacrificial glue block. I'm going to make up something and put it on there, and then I'll turn it, I'm going to glue it on with Tight Bond 3, and I'll let that set up all night, and I won't touch it. And I won't touch it again until tomorrow. So let's get the last cleanup cuts done, and we'll move on. Alright, so I'm going to get this glue block on. A little bit of white oak. I'll let this set up, and then tomorrow I'll form it into a tenon. So I've just spent the better part of an hour and a half cleaning out all of the bark out of the inclusion here. It's pretty deep. It's a pretty good canyon. This reminds me of something from Star Wars, honestly. Alright, showing my age. Any rate, so I think this really lends itself to being filled with epoxy. I don't do a ton with epoxy, but I'm not against it. And I think I'm gonna go in and order up some deep pour epoxy, because again, this is probably 2.5 inches deep here, and I'm gonna fill this. And I will come back when I've got all of the materials and I'm ready to fill it, because I've got a method that I found online, and I'll give credit to the person who I learned it from, Dan Priest. He has another channel. Go check out his stuff. He does some pretty amazing work, and he does a lot with epoxy, and I saw a way that he minimizes his epoxy use and maximizes how tight he can get his forms. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So I'll come back when I'm ready to do that. So what is going to contain all the epoxy will be the bag ultimately. But what's going to keep it tight to the form itself is going to be sand. Put the form into the bag, put the piece into the bag, put the epoxy in, draw up the bag, and then pack sand all the way around it, and that will hold it good and tight. It'll minimize how much waste I have with my epoxy. And it conforms to everything. So Dan Priest, excellent work, very impressed, and now it's my first shot to give this a try. These burls are so precious, I don't want to waste a drop if I can avoid it. All right. I'm going to do now is I'm going to pack sand in around probably about halfway, and then I'll add my epoxy. He put his into a vacuum, excuse me, or a pressure pot. I have a pressure pot, but not one that's this big. So that's not what I'm going to do. All right, it's time to pour some epoxy. I've given this thing about 12 minutes to settle the bubbles out. All right. All we've got to do is let that sit for about 4 days. So I will come back to this on, well, I'll check it on probably Wednesday, and then look at it on Thursday. Hopefully by Friday I'll be able to turn this thing. So it's been a couple days. The epoxy's really set up, so I'm going to pull this thing out of the mold, see how it fared. It's got my wife's trowel. I'm going to take out as much of the sand as I can, or at least enough to get it out of here. Okay, I've got this one set up to core, so let's do it. So after consideration, I've decided I'm using poly on this one. Oh, it really brings out the blue in that epoxy very, very nicely. Alright, so I've got all my polyurethane on. Now I am going to put some Yorkshire grit on there because I've sanded it back up to 5,000 grit, and I just want to get a little bit more of a polish on there. So alright, final step here on the outside, and everything except for the bottom is wax. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Looking good. Alright, now I gotta separate this from the lathe. Alright, all I gotta do is remove this little nub and sand up the bottom. Take a tiny bit of poly, just put a coat right on the bottom. That's that. All right, that's it. I am super happy with this. The epoxy came out great, and this burl is absolutely stunning. It absolutely is, and you know, it's just fortunate to be able to get it and give this a try. At any rate, if you think you've gotten anything out of this, please click like and subscribe. I'd appreciate that. And please leave me comments. I answer every single one. And as always, everybody, please stay safe and have a good day. Bye-bye.